Jamso.
On the first stage, we lost 18 minutes there, went off the road. So, and every stage after that, also lost time. I think everybody's having the same problem going off the road and that. And then our service crew also went off the road, so we didn't have service crew for 2 or 3 stages. So that doesn't make things easier for us.
It was still raining steadily when the Stanek Great North Rally resumed after a short supper break. Proceedings got underway with a spectator special stage in the centre of Zanin, with the Daewoo Lanos of Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha still out in front. With the cancellation of one of the 3 special stages scheduled for after the supper break, it was a shorter night than anticipated for crews, but no one was complaining. The 2 night special stages proved to be profitable for Castrol Toyota Conquest crews Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, who took 36 seconds off van der Merwe and Botha. Reigning champions Jan Habach and Douglas Judd were more than a minute and a half behind the Toyota, but still went on track for back-to-back overall titles. Understandably, Habach and Judd were still not in any mood to take chances. The short spectator stages are not every competitor's cup of tea, but they pull in the crowds. And despite the weather, there was a huge turnout of spectators from Zanin and the surrounding areas. The Dunair Toyota Conquest of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz was still a solid 5th, with the pair leading Class A6. A terrific performance saw Class N2 leaders Skalkberger and Thilo van Vestenhagen up to 6th overall in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. And with the retirement of championship contenders Chart van der Walt and Cindy Harding, the Krobelaar Burrows Team Total VW Golf was firmly in control of Class A7. With day 1 drawing to a close, the scales were still evenly balanced, with the weather and road conditions the critical factors.
Well, Peter, like I said earlier, you know, I don't think it's going to mean a lot until the last few stages, because it's just so bad out there and so slippery. You can overshoot, you can go off, you can do anything. So it's not, I'd rather be 51 ahead than catching 51. Put it that way.
At the end of day 1, the van der Merwe Botha lead had been cut to just 15 seconds. There were some big gaps between crews, but a couple of tight battles were also brewing, with a great deal of interest focused on the Group N scrap. The rain held off for a few minutes before the start of day 2, but with the rally and championship issues still delicately poised, there was plenty of tension among crews and team managers. 9 stages were scheduled for day 2, with Zanin once again the hub. Under leaden skies, with more rain forecast, there was always the possibility that more special stages were going to be cancelled. The opening special stage on day 2 was another all-tar spectator affair, with Sarel van der Merwe and Martin Botha defending a 15-second lead over Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide. With reigning champions Jan Habach and Douglas Judd content to sit back and defend 3rd place, the Stanek Great North Rally was now a straight fight between the Daewoo Lanos and the Castrol Toyota Conquest. Van der Merwe is a past master at rally mind games, but just to make it more interesting, 2nd place wasn't going to be enough for Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide where the championship was concerned. That set out a classic confrontation between 2 crews with 24 national drivers and co-drivers titles between them. Apart from needing to finish just 13th to secure the 8 points needed for back-to-back South African drivers and co-drivers titles, Jan Habach and Doug Judd also had it in the back of their minds to conserve the factory VW Golf for the World Championship RAC Rally in the United Kingdom in November. Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz started the day 15 minutes behind leaders van der Merwe and Botha, but their slim championship hopes were still alive. All they needed was for the 4 Class A8 cars ahead of them to fall by the wayside. It was hardly likely, but the pair have had a marvellous season, with Fecken a talent for the future. Veteran Skalkberger's future is now behind him, but he and Thilo van Vestenhagen were doing a great job in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. They led Class N2 and the Group N category overnight, but were looking over their shoulders at Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor in the Bridgestone Nissan Sentra. The Bridgestone crew had been up and down the field like a yo-yo on day 1, but were well clear of closest Group N championship rivals Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen. Grobler and McGregor only had to finish ahead of Blackman and Klaassen to wrap up the Group N and Class N3 titles, but they also had it in their minds to chase after Berger and van Vestenhagen. After the luxury of an all-tar stage to start the day, crews found themselves quickly back in a mud and slush environment. Special Stage 12 was cancelled, and going into Stage 13, Cyril van der Merwe and Martin Botha in the Daewoo Lanos now led Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide by a tenuous 3 seconds. The battle lines were now clearly demarcated, and the sort of battle everyone in the rally world had been hoping for was now a reality. It was head-to-head between two of the most experienced and talented rally drivers produced in South Africa, with Damso and Bonafide forced to go for broke in conditions that were still treacherous. Reigning champions and 1998 champions-elect, Jan Habak and Doug Judd, were now around 2 minutes behind the battle, going on ahead of them. The VW Golf crew were under a little pressure from Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley in the Team Total Toyota Conquest, but the Habak-Judd championship aspirations were still firmly on track, and there was no need for them to break out in a sweat. Matters were getting a bit tough, though, for Schalk Burger and Thilo van Vestenhagen, who had all their rally tyres stolen overnight and were left with just one set to complete the rally. They still led Class N2 by a mile, but Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor had taken huge wads of time off the Godrich Toyota crew. Class N1 championship contenders Alan Worms and Ashley Gericke were struggling along in the tiny Opel Corsa.
In the little 1300 Opel Corsa, and you don't have much power, it's a standard Group M car. And when the roads have been churned up, it's really slippery with not much horsepower. Getting up these little hills, it's not easy. It's a hard task. But we managed yesterday. I just hope we can do the same today and get through these stages like we did yesterday, and then everything's fine.
To win Class N1, Worms and Gericke had to finish no lower than 16th, and they still had 2 places to make up. It was going to be a tight call, and their situation was just one of the little cameos that held the interest of an event that also produced unsung heroes in the service crews who were working under severe conditions. Despite the rain, big crowds flocked to special stages, and Stage 14 provided spectators with plenty of entertainment. Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley were early victims at a particularly treacherous section of the route. With the Team Total Toyota Conquest blocking the road, Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz lost time when they arrived on the scene. But with help from Paisley and a few willing spectators, the pair was soon on their way, with the Dunair Toyota crew still in 5th place. Next on the scene were Schalk Burger and Thilo van Vestenhagen in the Godrich Toyota Corolla. Poles and cable stays provided additional obstacles to be negotiated, but Burger simply took a deep breath and went merrily on his way without losing too much time. Steaming along behind Burger and van Vestenhagen were Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor, who were now ahead of the Toyota crew and led the Group N category. The Lawrence-Paisley Toyota was finally extricated from the mud, and then along came Grobler and McGregor to provide the enthusiastic crowd with more entertainment. Grobler and McGregor were deep in the mire, but with a little help from a couple of spectators who were having the time of their lives, the Bridgestone pair were sent on their way after losing over a minute to Burger and van Vestenhagen. When Pierre Hussen and Eugene Blanche put in an appearance, the road was clear, with the Cape crew given a huge roar of approval from the spectators for making it through under their own steam. At the next service point, Grobler looked concerned, but McGregor was still upbeat.
Well, 14 was the waterfall stage. We had it all together, and as we came around the stay wire, there was a drop-off to the left, and unfortunately we dropped off. It cost us a minute, but you know, we're building a lot of character, that I want to tell you. We've got character we haven't even used yet. Still a couple of stages to go. I know Hannes is at his best coming from behind, and we're still having fun.
Well, McGregor and Grobler were having fun all right, and Jan Habak and Doug Judd looked as though they didn't have a care in the world. But the rally gods were not yet finished when it came to drama on the Stanek Great North Rally. With 2 special stages to go, Cyril van der Merwe and Martin Botha still led Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, but the gap was now just 13 seconds. Van der Merwe was looking to add to the more than 70 national championship victories already under his belt, with the Daewoo team looking to score wins in 2 successive Stanek National Rally Championship events. Damso and Bonafide still needed to finish ahead of Supervan and Botha to stay alive in the championship, and race cam action from the Habak and Judd car here captured the turning point of the rally. Up ahead of the VW Golf, the Daewoo Lanos was firmly stuck in the mud, with both Van der Merwe and Botha out of the car. Through went Habach and Judd, and with Van der Merwe and Botha losing 21 minutes, victory number 4 this season was in the bag for the Castrol Toyota crew. Jan Habach and Douglas Judd moved into second place, with Etienne Lawrence and Robert Paisley also moving ahead of the Daewoo pair, and they were now in third. Van der Merwe and Botha had built up enough of a lead to stay ahead of Jürgen Fecken and Dave Lukowitz, while Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor had once again moved ahead of Skalkberger and Tilo van Vestenhagen, and were back in 6th place overall and leading the Group N category. The final stage at the Zanin Test Grounds was of academic interest, where the overall result was concerned. But a great 6th overall saw Skalkberger and Tilo van Vestenhagen clinch the Class N2 championship. A steady drive took Cape pair Pierre Goossen and Eugene Blanche into 8th overall, with Fernando Rueda and Johan Seeling slipping almost unnoticed into 9th place overall. Rocky Reinecker and Richard Gerentholt scored their maiden Class A7 victory in the Hencom Golf GTI. Cliff Blackman and Johan Klaassen missed the boat where the Group N championship is concerned, while another steady drive saw Gijs Klein and Carolyn Simmer secure 3rd place in Class N3. Bossy Bosman and Steve Krobler were still having fun in the Class S20 Nissan, with Richard Behm and Johan Barnard 2nd in Class N2 in the Palvin Opel Corsa. Alan Worms and Ashley Herricker were the only Class N1 finishers and were high enough up the leaderboard to snatch the Class N1 championship from Rodney Fasaki and Chris Olsen. The battle was won for Serge Damso and Vito Bonafide, but it was Jan Habach and Douglas Judd who won the war. 2nd was enough to give the pair back-to-back South African championships, with Hannes Grobler and Dave McGregor the Group N and Class N3 champions. The Stanek Great North Rally also saw Berger and Van Vestenhagen and Worms and Herricker clinch the Class N2 and Class N1 titles. For Damso and Bonafide, it was a case of so near and yet so far.
Yes, it wasn't easy. Solo had a fantastic rally and we had a good dive all the way to the end. And that's what it's all about.
For South African champions Jan Habach and Douglas Judd, there was also plenty to celebrate.
It's been a tough year with sort of high peaks and lows, but I think the result speaks for itself, and I'm very happy, Douglas is happy, and the team, I think, they're delighted.
A huge cheer was reserved for Group N champions Dave McGregor and the ever-jovial and popular Hannes Grobler.
I think we pulled everything together. We're glad for all our sponsors that we could pull it through, and I hope we're going to be back next year with maybe something better.
Toyota had wrapped up the prestigious Manufacturers' Championship before the Stanek Great North Rally, which was brought to you by Stanek and Sasol.
Is proudly sponsored by QuickFit.